So, do you guys remember how I started? Actually, now that I look at this one, I think grouping would have worked. You guys remember grouping in your state? But they want us to practice, some of these grouping does not work, so we need to do this. So do you guys remember how I started? You need factors of this guy, the last one, over factors of the first one. What's the first coefficient? 1. Okay, what are the factors of 1? What are the factors of 1? Okay, so on this one, see how easy we're starting here. The possible rational roots are 1 over 1, so it's positive or negative 1.
Do you want us to show that over the 1?
I'm not going to just show some work. I'm not going to make you show everything I'm doing. Okay, if you plug in 1, this 1 cubed is 1, 1 squared is 1, this is 1. So it'd be like 1 minus 1 minus 1 plus 1. Does that equal 0?
Yes.
It does. That's what I said. 1 minus 1 minus 1 plus 1. That does equal 0. So 1 is a solution. How many solutions should this have normally? 3. So 1 is going to be our first solution. Okay, if 1 is a solution, so remember when we were doing problems like this, like x plus 7, x minus 1, if we have this, 1 is an answer, right? So if 1 is an answer, I know that x minus 1 is a factor. So basically what I need to do is divide this by x minus 1. When I divide this by x minus 1, it should give me an x squared, a quadratic that I can solve using factoring or quadratic formula. Once we get it down to x squared, we can solve it. Okay, how do I divide it by x minus 1? Well, whoops. Synthetic is the best way to do it. So add down 1 plus nothing times 1 times 1 times 1. Oops.
What's your times?
My bad. Let's see. What did I do wrong? 0 times 1 is 0. I should get no remainder here. So add down, multiply up, add down, multiply up. Okay, this is 0. There we go. I got my adding and multiplying mixed up. Alright. Yeah, you know it's the right answer if you get a 0 here. This tells me two things. It tells me that when I plug in 1, it's a correct solution. And it also tells me that x minus 1 divided evenly. It's kind of telling me two things at once. It's a little bit complex. But what do these things right here stand for? It stands for x squared plus 0x minus 1. Okay, and we want that to equal 0. So we could try plugging stuff in again, but what's the easiest way to solve this?
Add 1 and then square root.
Add 1 square root. It's also a square minus a square. Square root, so if x squared equals 1, x is what?
Plus or minus.
There we go, plus or minus 1. Okay, we already had positive 1 as an answer, which means positive 1 would be a double root. But I'm not going to write it twice, it's just one answer still. So positive 1 and negative 1 are an answer. So this one actually only has 2 solutions because 1 is a double root. Does that make sense? Let's try again. Uno más. Let me copy it down. x4 minus 2x squared plus 9. Yeah, this one would factor as well. But don't do it that way. Can't give credit. When you get square root answer, when you get messy answers, that means they wouldn't have factored. Okay, you guys remember how I started?
Last difference.
Factors of 9 over factors of 1. You guys remember this from last year? Vaguely, maybe. What goes into 9?
9,
1, 3, 9. Or it doesn't matter what goes into 1. So it's 1 over 1, 3 over 1, 9 over 1. So it's 1, 3, or 9. They're all.
It's kind of nice that we only have like 6 things to
Yeah, well, last one we only had 2. And I always try the ones first because plugging in 1 is kind of easy. Plugging in 3 is harder. If you plug in 1, 1 to the 4th is 1. 1 squared is 1. So this would be like 1 minus 10 times 1 is 10 plus 9. Does that equal 0?
do. No.
Yes. Okay, so 1 is one of the solutions. So I need to, you can't forget it because that, I'll just write off to the side and circle it maybe, but I'm going to kind of divide out that answer. So I'm going to use synthetic. I have a 1, a 0, a negative 10, a 0, and a 9. And I'm taking out the answer of 1. It's kind of like I'm dividing by x minus 1. So I'm going to add down, multiply up. I'm going to go slower this time so I don't screw up again. Alright, that time it worked. Alright, now, what does this represent? This is the constant, the x squared, the x cubed. So it's still an x cubed problem, so I can't use factoring or quadratic formula to solve this. Actually, grouping would work, but we're not supposed to use that right now. Because we're practicing like normal answers with this, and then later on there'll be like messy answers where factoring would not work. Okay, so what I need to do is plug stuff in again and see what works. It is possible that 1 is a double root. So I should check and see if 1 works again. It's possible 1 is a triple root. I don't think they're going to do that to us. It's possible 1 is an answer 2 or 3 times, but if 1 didn't work, I would try negative 1. If that didn't work, I'd try 3 and just keep going. So let's see if 1 works again. See if it's a double root. Add down, multiply up. No, this is not working. Okay, 1 is not a double root. So I'm going to plug in negative 1 and see if it works. If it comes out as 0 at the end, I know it worked.
So if we use other methods, we
You're
get
not,
wrong.
yeah, you're going to get wrong.
Wow.
Factoring would work on the first 2 evens, but it wouldn't work on 18.
Can we do that?
No, it actually work on 18. 20 wouldn't work. No, you have to do this. Alright, they're giving you like normal answers that factoring would have worked on before they give you the messy ones. Okay, so this stands for x squared minus 9. Okay, I could keep plugging stuff in, but now that I've got it down to a quadratic, I'm just going to solve for x. X squared is 9. So what? Square root of 9 plus minus 3. Okay. That's only 2 of my answers. Negative 1 worked. And 1 worked. So actually, positive and negative 1 also worked. So that one had 4 answers. that make sense? Kind of. Let's try again. Okay, you guys tell me every step to do on this one. Let me write it down. 3 minus 4 minus 5. This one's an x cubed, which means we only have to find one answer before we get it down to a quadratic.
What if you're on plus or minus, or if you like write down like the numbers individually, it's like individually. What is asking if we have to do it like that?
No, I don't care. Okay. What do I do first?
2 arrow, 3 arrow.
What do I put here?
1, 2. 1, 3.
Okay, factors of 2, what multiplies into 2, factors of 3. Okay, then what do I do with those?
Plus or minus 1. Plus or minus 1/3.
Okay, yeah, 1 over 1, 1 over 3. I'll probably do the fractions last because they're harder. 2.
Plus or minus 2/3.
Okay, now what do I do with that?
Put it into synthetic.
Plug it in. Okay, you could start with synthetic. I like to plug 1 in normally because it's easy. Like I don't need a calculator. Because when you plug in 1 here, this just turns into a 3. This is a minus 4. This is a minus 5. So 3 minus 4 is -1. Minus 5 is -6 plus 2 is not 0. 1 is not going to work. So I'm not going to waste time doing synthetic. -1 is a little harder to plug in. This would be -3. -1 squared is +1, but that's a -4 times 1, so that'd be negative. Anyway, it's a little harder to plug in. This would be -3 minus 4 is -7, plus 5 is -2 plus 2. So I think -1 is going to work. I would definitely save the fractions for last. But if you're using a calculator, it's not really a big deal either way. But yeah, it looks like -1 is going to work. So 3, -4. I should have asked you guys what to do with that. Add down. Multiply. You guys are pretty good at this. I don't think I really need to. Okay, and if we did it right, or if it's the right answer, this should always be a 0. So -1 is one of the right answers. How many more should we probably have?
1,
2 more,
2.
because there's degree of 3. Should be a couple more. Okay. The last 2 answers could be like weird square roots, but probably it's going to be factorable, or you could use quadratic formula. I think this is going to factor because 3 times 2 is 6. So what goes into 3x squared?
3.
3x times x. What goes into 2? It's 2 times 1.
-1 minus 2.
That's right. I need the 2 to go with this, and I need it to be negative, because we're trying to get a -7. Issa's getting good at factoring. Reach the next level. All right. What are my 2 answers going to be?
1/3. 2.
And don't forget this guy from before. -1. All right, now is it as scary? Hopefully not, because we got one left, so hopefully you've got the skills. X, so 1, 2, -2, -6. -6. Alright, so this one should have 4 answers, and 19 and 20 both have messy answers, which means it would not have factored. So this is where this trick actually is necessary. Alright, so I kind of feel like the girls did that one, so how about the guys do this one? So what do we do first? Go ahead, Grant.
Trace and then Uno.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're struggling in English, so maybe we should just... Okay, and what else?
It's 1. And then
Oh, that's what you meant. You meant 3 and 1 here. Okay. And then factors of 1.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what?
We could like try to plug in 1 and.
No, you're skipping a step.
Oh, my bad. I forget what's that.
The possible answers
plus,
are
plus or minus, like all that.
plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 3, which that's good news. That's not a lot of options. But because there are possibly 4 answers, we're going to have to find 2 before it gets down to an x squared. A little bit more work on these.
1 doesn't work.
Okay, if I plug in 1 plus 2 minus 2 minus 6 minus 3, you're right, 1 would not work. Does -1 work? That'd be 1 minus 2 is -1, minus 2 is -3, plus 6,
It don't work.
3 minus 2. Actually, I think -1 is going to work.
It does.
It's very hard to do that without a lot of practice, so you might just start on synthetic. You might just go straight to synthetic, or you might use a calculator. Alright, Grant, help me out on this part, since you were kind of gone when we did this.
So it becomes 1, and then we multiply by -1, and we get -1, and then that becomes 1 again. Then that one becomes -1 again, and then that's -3, and then that becomes 3, and that becomes 3, and then -3, and that becomes 3.
You sound like an engineer.
Okay,
Haha.
so -1 is an answer. It could be a double answer. It could be a double root. So before we go on to 3, and 3 could work also, we should probably make sure -1 doesn't work again. I can't start like factoring yet because this is like an x cubed, x squared. This is an x cubed. So it's not ready to do like quadratic formula. We are going to have to use quadratic formula on this one. It's not going to factor. Anyway, let's see if -1 works again.
It works.
It does work again.
Yippee.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad I checked it then. Okay, -1 is a double root. That's what that means. Which means we actually are only going to have 3 answers. Well, it's possible there's 2 double roots, but the last 2 answers, actually we're not going to need quadratic formula. I take that back because what we're left with right now is x squared minus 3.
That's just like a plus or minus, but without like that one.
Right. So since it's just x squared, we can just do the square root trick.
Oh yeah.
So x equals plus or minus square root of 3 and -1.
Yay, we're back.
You got 20 minutes. Go team. I'm gonna come around in 5 minutes and check number 14.